A lot of finalies last night. Robbie Ray finally came off the injured list. The Giants offense finally broke out coming out of the All-Star break. It's been forever. And it all added up to the Giants finally getting a win at Dodger Stadium in 2024.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and RotoGraphs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting the show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. This episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And coming up on today's show, as I said, yesterday was a day of finalies for the Giants. They finally got Robbie Ray back. And, we're going to look back at that trade that netted the Giants Robbie Ray as well, and how I was looking at Mitch Haniger yesterday at his numbers and how he's continued to struggle since being sent back to Seattle. So this looks like it looked at the time and it looks now like a potentially really good deal for the Giants here getting Robbie Ray, as we saw last night. But it didn't start out so well for Robbie Ray. And Bob Melvin said he was not that far away from getting pulled out of the game in the first inning. The game did not start out great for Robbie Ray at all, and it was kind of the Robbie Ray experience, which can happen with him. It's kind of like Blake Snell in terms of command, can be a problem. So it started out, Shohei Ohtani, I think it was the first pitch that Robbie Ray threw. It was a 94-mile-an-hour fastball, and Ohtani hit it to the wall in left for an out. And then Will Smith was hit by a pitch, which, started the shenanigans that went on in the first. So then there was a wild pitch that moved Will Smith to second, a walk to Freddie Freeman on 5 pitches. A couple of pitches were borderline, by the way. And then there was another wild pitch that sent Will Smith to third and Freddie Freeman to second. And then Teoscar Hernandez was hit by a pitch also down in the foot area where Will Smith was hit. And so we're talking 1, 2, 3 batters hit by pitch, walk, hit by pitch, with 2 wild pitches in there, and then followed up by a walk that scored a run. And so that is not what you want to see. Thankfully, Shohei Ohtani made that out to start the inning, but all of a sudden it's 1-0 Dodgers. They've got the bases loaded. There's only 1 out, and he's totally wild. So he walked Andy Pages on how many pitches? On 5 pitches, just like Freddie Freeman. The 1 strike was a chase, so none of the pitches in the strike zone. So he was wild, obviously, right? But then huge strikeout of Miguel Vargas. Kind of pounded the zone. I'm looking at the pitches, like where they were, and he did pound the zone in this at bat through. Just a big strikeout of Miguel Vargas there. And then you got Chris Taylor to pop out in a full count. And so he's 1 pitch away from walking in another run, and who knows what happens. But he threw a good quality 95-mile-an-hour fastball in the strike zone up and in to Taylor and got him to pop out and got through the inning. And it took, I think it was 33 pitches for Robbie Ray to get through that first inning, and there were 2 mound visits. So it was just about as I don't want to say bad, because only the fact that he was able to escape it with only 1 run allowed was huge. I felt like that was huge for the Giants in terms of momentum in the game. And then they did, in fact, go ahead in the fourth with 2 runs. But so the big story, though, was Robbie Ray after that first inning. He didn't allow another base runner, and he ended up going 5 innings, and he struck out 8, and he didn't allow a hit. So 5 no-hit innings ultimately for Robbie Ray in his Giants debut, a debut that we've been waiting for all season. They traded for Robbie Ray in the offseason. The deal was, I believe it was just Mitch Haniger and Anthony DeSclafani for Robbie Ray. I need to double check on that, because if that was a trade, I mean, that looks like a heist, because DeSclafani is injured and not playing, and it's a pretty significant injury. He was also traded by the Mariners after the Giants. The Mariners also got some cash in the trade. But still, I said it at the time, and I'll say it again now. You get a potentially front end type arm. You just have to deal with missing him for the first half of the year or more in this case. And you have to pay him while he's rehabbing. And what they gave up was 2 players who were really struggling and on contracts that the Giants didn't want to have. And so I think this trade looks like a slam dunk win for the Giants. And then what we saw, I mean, if you watch the game, I mean, Robbie Ray's stuff looked really, really good. Once he was able to find his arm slot and release point, he was excellent. And he just shut down a very potent Dodgers team offense. And trying to get the data on the velocities and stuff that he was featuring, not seeing that on first glance. Oh yeah, so he averaged 95.2 with his fastball in this start, and that, it's obviously just one start, but that would be, if he were to average that, it would be the highest of his career. So he's throwing hard. He threw 51% four-seam fastballs. He threw 31% sliders, which averaged 89.7, like 90 miles an hour with the slider. He threw a knuckle curve 17% of the time, averaged 84.4 miles an hour. So 3-pitch mix and just extremely effective. The grunts, the tight pants. I mean, it was just the full Robbie Ray experience, including the dicey kind of command issues in that first inning. He has kind of honed in his command issues. Like, he used to have them big time when he was with the Diamondbacks, but in 2021, when he won the Cy Young Award with Toronto, he had a very good 6.7% walk rate. In 2022, after he signed with Seattle, in that first year, his walk rate was also very much under control. And so maybe command issues are not such a big thing with him anymore. But I will also point out, guys coming back from Tommy John surgery often struggle with command initially. It takes them a while to get it back. They feel like they have a new arm, and they kind of have to hone it in and kind of figure out how to fine-tune what it feels like to kind of get a feel for commanding pitches again. But clearly the stuff was sharp and good, and the velocity. So it's just a really good sign. It's something that this team desperately needs, because as much as there is a focus, there tends to be a focus on the offense for the Giants, and certainly in the second half, obviously it's only been a handful of games, they've struggled there in that regard, but mostly the Giants' earned run average as a team is 24th in baseball. The Oakland A's are a tick better than the Giants, and so if you're 24th in ERA, and we could just look at simple like runs allowed per game or whatever. Giants have allowed the 8th most runs in baseball, and they're scoring like in the middle of the pack. And so it's been mostly a pitching issue. But if you have Robbie Ray, and then you get Alex Cobb, and you've got Logan Webb, and you've got Blake Snell, I mean, this is an underperforming team ultimately, but they also have not had Robbie Ray and have not had Alex Cobb, and they've missed Blake Snell for 2 months with injuries. And so it is a team with, one more game in LA and then a pretty significantly soft part of the schedule coming up. They've got to take advantage of it now. So coming up in just a minute, I want to discuss a little bit about what Mitch Haniger's doing in Seattle, but also get to the offense finally breaking through. Eric Miller showing up his teammates. That was something that happened, and roster moves. They had to make roster moves to get Robbie Ray activated. So we'll get into all of that later on, coming up in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by SupplyHouse. Get supplies from the site that's made for the skilled trades. SupplyHouse.com. SupplyHouse.com is the reliable way to order plumbing, h-vac, and electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. Pros in the skilled trades can get a competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free TradeMaster program. Every TradeMaster gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at SupplyHouse.com. Today's episode of Locked On Giants is also brought to you by Game Time. I love going and traveling and visiting, watching the Giants play on the road during the summer. My family and I used to do it every year for a number of years when I was younger, and it's just such a fond memory for me. And I continue to do it to this day when I can. And Game Time allows me to do it with ease and satisfaction, to buy tickets to those events, to those games, really. Oftentimes I want to go to a stadium I've never seen before, and with Game Time you get images of seat views, panoramic images of seat views, and also the lowest price guarantee, which is like, come on, you can't beat that. With, like, if you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the offense finally breaking through. We're going to get into Eric Miller getting mad about another outfield blunder that happened to him just the other day in a very similar fashion. Roster moves that the Giants made, so much to get into. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we are going to be breaking down the finale here with Clayton Kershaw against Logan Webb. It's a kind of classic matchup here. Clayton Kershaw, like Robbie Ray, I mean, one day after each other. It's kind of crazy. Lefty, really good. Kershaw making his season debut for the Dodgers today. And so for the Giants, they have a chance to split this series with their ace on the mound. And so can they do it? We'll be breaking it down for you tomorrow. And if they can't, it'll reek of disappointment. But anyway, are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Just make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So I do just want to mention, I looked this up because I guess I had Robbie Ray on the brain, and I wanted to see what is Mitch Haniger doing in Seattle, because the Giants signed him to this 3-year, $43.5 million contract. He can opt out after this season, but he is under contract this year, and he can not opt out after the season and would be under contract for one more year, that year being next year. And so I looked, and he's basically doing almost exactly what he did last year with the Giants. Like, he's stinking it up. Last year he hit 209 with the Giants. This year he's hitting 207, almost identical. Last year with the Giants, 266 on base. This year, 287 on base. Both of those just very bad. Last year he slugged 365 with the Giants. This year slugging 342 with the Mariners. And so also not playing good defense. He's played 64 games in right and 18 games at DH. And in those games in right field, we're talking -5 defensive runs saved, -6 outs above average. So getting out from underneath that, first of all, I mean, they deserve some criticism for the contract because Haniger just has played very poorly since the Giants signed him to that deal. But also to get away from the deal and get away from Anthony DeSclafani's deal, and get Robbie Ray in return, who had so much more upside than either of these players. DeSclafani, is going to miss is missing the whole season, and this is the last year of his contract. So that's what the Giants gave up, plus cash, which as a fan you should not really care about because it's just their money and not ours. And depending on what Robbie Ray does, Robbie Ray is under contract through 2026, but he can opt out after this year. So if he pitches great down the stretch, there is a chance he opts out of the 2 years and $50 million that will be left on his contract after 2024. The one thing going against him is he's going to turn 33 on October 1st. And so, it's his age 33 and age 34 seasons. Can he do better than 2 years, $50 million? Yeah, probably, if he pitches great in the last couple months of the season. So we'll see. That does remain a question, but ultimately, what did they give up? Haniger and DeSclafani, and Mariners are stuck with Haniger he's not going to opt out given how he's playing, and then DeSclafani just is just going to miss all of this season. So anyway, just circling back on that trade, it still looks good for the Giants. I thought it looked really good at the time too. It just took a long time waiting for it to materialize where you actually got to see Robbie Ray. And when we saw him and he was really good. So the Giants offense finally broke through in this game. One thing that really jumped off the page to me is they drew 9 walks in this game. They really made Tyler Glasnow work. Even though he only allowed 2 runs, he threw a lot of pitches in 5 innings. He threw 91 pitches, only 51 strikes. Guess that's not so bad, but in 5 innings of work. And then they drew a walk off of at least one walk off of every Dodgers pitcher except the last one, Ryan Yarborough. And so 9 walks for the Giants drawn and 9 hits. So anytime you can get 9 hits, 9 walks, that's a good thing. And they put up 8 runs, including a 6-run 8th. They said on the broadcast, and I didn't write down the exact date, but they mentioned that the Giants hadn't scored 5 runs in a game on the road since June 17th or something. So I would need to verify that, but my goodness, that's crazy, first of all. And secondly, they scored 6 in an inning in this game. So it was exercising demons in a major way, not just since the All-Star break, but if that's true, since the middle of June. I mean, when I look at the standings and kind of just analyze what I'm seeing, the main problem for the Giants has just been their poor record on the road. They're 21-32 on the road, even with this win, and they're 28-22 at home. That's fine. It's not great, but it's okay. Against teams that are at or above 500, they're 30-39, which is respectable enough. There are other teams out there that are in a good spot that also have sub 500 records against teams over 500, at or above 500. I don't know. I mean, obviously you'd like to be a little better, but that's if you win 4 more games, you're basically 500 against those teams, but out of 69 games played against them. So it's kind of little bit razor thin, but at the same time, road play 21-32. Whereas you look at a team like the Diamondbacks, they're only 26-24 at home, but they're 27-26 on the road. So the Giants just have not played well on the road this season, and that is really the main culprit behind their overall record of 49-54. So to see them break out offensively, win a game at Dodger Stadium for the first time all year. I was there last time in the beginning of the season when they got swept, and then they lose the first two of this series, winning the game last night, and then today a chance to split is obviously very big. And if they can do it, obviously that would be huge. So, yeah, I mean, overall in the season, the Giants do find themselves slightly above average offensively, believe it or not, in terms of weighted runs created plus. Their team batting average is middle of the pack. Their team on base percentage is a little better than middle of the pack. Their team slugging percentage a little worse than middle of the pack. So they've been more or less a middle of the pack offense. And in terms of base running, they've been roughly middle of the pack, a little worse than that. In terms of defense, better than middle of the pack. And in terms of overall FanGraphs wins above replacement, a little better than middle of the pack. And this is for their position players. And so really it has been a run prevention problem. The offense has been okay enough. Like Patrick Bailey's been a stud. Matt Chapman's been solid. Not great, but solid. Elliot Ramos, obviously, I mean, he has slumped. Let's be clear. Like he has slumped for a while now. But he got a big hit in that 6-run eighth. Matt Chapman had a big hit a home run. Michael Conforto, they said it was his first hit of the road trip. He had been 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts going into that last at bat, so that must have felt real good to get a hit there and first hit of the road trip. Tyler Fitzgerald stayed red hot, went 1 for 3 with a hustle double and 2 walks, no strikeouts. So his emergence has been a very nice bright spot for the Giants. And so there are some positive things happening here. Fitzgerald has put up almost 2 FanGraphs wins above replacement in 40 games, hitting .323, 400 on base, .602 slugging. His 5 straight games with a home run streak ended last night. Didn't hit 6, which would have been insane. So, yeah, I mean, Fitzgerald is just it's like the team has been losing overall, and so we've kind of not had a chance to like sing the praises of Tyler Fitzgerald too much, but he's doing some really impressive things and has earned pretty consistent playing time right now. And against the lefty Kershaw, I think he's batting second and playing short. And so let's see if he can keep it going. It's just been really cool to watch. He's not chasing. He's hitting for a lot of power, and he's got great speed, and he's defensively versatile. So yeah, there's a lot to like there with Fitzgerald. And, you know, Lamont Wade has been a force offensively as well. So that's not all bad for the Giants. Again, like I said, this is ultimately what I would view as an underperforming team, but they've also had a lot of injuries and are getting healthy and are coming up on a soft part of the schedule. So let's just see what happens. Trade deadline is on Tuesday, and a lot can go right or wrong in the next several days here as they wrap up their series in LA and then play the Rockies and A's at home, which is soft. So coming up in just a minute, Eric Miller showing up his teammates. We'll get into that. And the roster moves that the Giants made to activate Robbie Ray. They had to make a lot of them, and we'll get into what they were in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Booking.com, Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rivals' cities, with hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more. On Booking.com, you can find your perfect stay even in your rival's city. From hotels that look over stadiums, which I personally have done this season at Fenway Park, to family-friendly resorts. Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. And then, like I said earlier, I just love doing that, and Booking.com brings it all together and makes it super easy. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports, for sure. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. If you're looking for promotions, Prize Picks has got you covered every week, from lowering select players' stat projections on Tuesdays, which I took advantage of on Tuesday with Paul Skeens, getting his strikeouts more or less number lowered by 2 strikeouts. And I was like, okay, more. And that hit. Or getting your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Fridays. Prize Picks is also available in more than 30 states across the country, including California. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB. It's all lowercase, by the way, on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, as promised, we're going to get into this. First of all, miscommunication in the outfield again that was unacceptable, but also a reaction by Eric Miller that was unacceptable, and the roster moves the Giants made to get Robbie Ray activated, and also the roster moves the Giants made today because they have an injury to one of their veteran players. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Every day airs tomorrow. Like I said, we'll be breaking down Logan Webb versus Clayton Kershaw with a lot on the line here for the Giants. Like, if they can split, they would really salvage this trip a little bit, and it would go from being borderline disastrous to being not so bad. A reminder that you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. Also, right after every game, check out Postcast with Eric Engel, Locked On Giants Postcast. Has its own YouTube channel, Locked On Sports San Francisco, because Eric also does immediate post-game reaction after Warriors and 49ers games when those teams are in season. So check that out, subscribe for sure. And then for the Giants postcasts, those go on our regular podcast feed. So you see that, it'll say postcast in the title, just to give you a heads up about what that is, and that you should check it out for that immediate reaction right after the game. Hit the notification bell so you get notified when Eric goes live after games. Anyway, so another miscommunication in the outfield. This one, manager Bob Melvin, blamed on Elliot Ramos, and I do too. Yaz said, my bad. You could see him on TV because, Ramos was calling for the ball, but Yaz didn't peel very aggressively out of the way. But at the same time, as someone who used to play baseball and played center field, that ball was way more easily catchable by Yastrzemski. And I think that it's kind of a read thing by Ramos to see Yaz was calling for it about 3 seconds before Ramos started calling for it himself. And so if you just look over and see that Yaz is kind of camped underneath it, just peel off and back him up and never call for it. I say never call for it is the best outcome. Just let Yaz catch it. And that's my opinion. It was an easier play for Yastrzemski, who was already there basically. And Ramos, he starts calling for it though. And so at that point, if you're saying, I got it, then Yaz does need to get out of the way, and Ramos needs to catch the ball instead of getting at the last second close to Yastrzemski and then peeling off. It was just I got it, you take it at the last second, where they both just kind of were like, uh-oh, you take it. And that has happened twice now in this series. It didn't ultimately matter in the outcome of the game, but it did matter in the ERA and hits, allowed for Eric Miller. And it was him on the mound when it happened with Luis Matos and Elliot Ramos the other day. And so Eric Miller, after he got out of the inning, which, by the way, involved striking out Shohei Ohtani, who's now 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts against Eric Miller. Just to put that on the top of your resume if you're Eric Miller. Unbelievable. But he was mad, and you could read his lips as he was coming off the mound, and he was screaming, "Catch the stinking ball. Dang." I'm very much making that more appropriate language than what he actually said. Catch the stinking ball. Dang. Yeah, you get the idea. Not covering his mouth with his glove, so you don't want to show up your teammates like that because they obviously, these are major league players. I get it. It's frustrating. It's super frustrating. Those runs go against Miller, but you just can't do that if you're Eric Miller. I don't mind him screaming into his glove. It would show that he's probably mad, but if you can read his lips and you're basically you're a rookie and you're just throwing, someone like Yaz, who's a seasoned veteran, under the bus there. I guess maybe he's mad at Ramos, who's not a seasoned veteran, because Ramos was involved in both plays and he's the center fielder. But regardless, it's fine. He probably needs a talking to, though, by Bob Melvin or he needs to apologize to Yaz and Elliot Ramos. That's kind of just clubhouse culture kind of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. There's cameras on you. You're in the major leagues. You can't be yelling stuff like that because there's always a camera on you. You're the pitcher in the game. So yeah, wasn't a good look for Miller, but he pitched well and it should have been caught. He's not wrong. As a fan, you might be screaming that, but nobody's filming you, and you're not the one who's teammates with Ramos and Yaz. So they'll work that out. I'm sure that's the kind of thing Melvin, he won't let that kind of thing go unresolved. And yeah, so lastly, I do just want to get into the roster moves that the Giants made. So Robbie Ray was on the 60-day IL. They had to clear a 40-man spot to get him onto the 40-man roster by, thus activating him from the 60-day IL. And they had to clear a major league roster spot. So there was in my opinion, a chance they could have DFA'd Luke Jackson or something, and that would have cleared both a 40-man spot and an active roster spot. But instead, something else I thought they might do was they put Keaton Winn on the 60-day IL, retroactive to when his injury was, which was over or about a month ago anyway. So it just means he'll have to miss another 30 days or so. So that's not surprising that they did that. Doesn't mean 60 days from now. It means 60 days from the original date they put him on the injured list. And they optioned 2 players because they also added Derek Hill, whom they claimed off waivers recently, right-handed hitting outfielder who has historically hit well against left-handed pitching. And Luis Matos has really struggled since that great start. And he struck out in a big situation against a lefty in this series, Alex Vesia. So they optioned Luis Matos. So the corresponding move for optioning Luis Matos was activating Derek Hill, who they just claimed off waivers. And then they optioned Randy Rodriguez, and that cleared the spot for Robbie Ray on the active roster. So it was a pretty busy day transactions-wise, with Ray and Hill being added and Matos and Rodriguez being optioned to AAA. And then today, Wilmer Flores was placed on the 10-day IL with right knee tendonitis, retroactive to July 24th, so that's just yesterday. And David Villar was recalled from AAA. So Villar, his at-bats were good when he was up here, and Flores, it's just been a grind all season long. So clearly he's dealing with an injury, and, who knows what he would be doing if healthy, but it's been rough sledding for Wilmer Flores, and maybe, VR can be part of the impressive youth movement that we've seen has been a bright spot in 2024. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow, Logan Webb, Clayton Kershaw. It basically writes itself. Very good matchup that we'll be breaking down and previewing this 4-game series in 3 days with a scheduled doubleheader against the Rockies. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thank you in advance. And thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.